The illegal trade in cigarettes in South Africa isn't anything new, but when lockdown regulations banned the sale of smokes, smokers took matters into their own hands, buying from their friendly neighbourhood dealers. But small-time dealers lead to the high-stakes black market. Now in this special investigation, we track how the sale of illicit smokes continues as the catalyst for cigarette smuggling rings that are raking in millions for criminal syndicates.
Die-hard smokers are so desperate for a drag, they'll pay almost anything.
Right, I'm counting out my cash for the week for the cigarettes. It's over 2,000 Rand a carton now, which would normally cost me about 300 Rand.
This delivery comes disguised as a present. Other smokers innovate.
We don't throw stompies away in South Africa at the moment. Look at all the tobacco left in it.
Under lockdown, Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Dr. Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma enforced a prolonged government smoking ban, citing health concerns. But it's resulted in forcing some smokers to break the law to feed their nicotine addiction.
There's 10 people who must say one cigarette because why? The cigarette is 10 Rand and each people must give 1 Rand to smoke from that one cigarette.
If you're going to be a smoker, please don't pay money that fund organized crime. Because if you do that, don't complain if people come and break into your home because you're paying them.
If anyone knows about organized criminals, it's Johan Van Locherenberg, who is a former South African Revenue Service tax and customs fraud investigator who took on the illicit tobacco industry.
The ban is a complete failure. Within 70 days, the ban has pushed in excess of 2 billion Rand into the pockets of, by and large, organized crime syndicates.
Van Locherenberg is referring to the supply chain of smugglers and illicit traders. We ventured one evening to meet a veteran smuggler, Mr. X, who made millions from illegally importing Zimbabwean cigarettes.
Before the lockdown, they were selling a carton of 10 packs for 70 Rand. Now they're selling for 400.
He says the ban has seen obscene profits for smugglers and other criminals in the cigarette supply chain. The game, he says, has always been to avoid the VAT and high sin tax on cigarettes. If a pack of 20 costs 2 Rand to make, the tax comes to roughly 17 Rand. But if a cigarette is exported, the manufacturer doesn't pay tax or can claim it back. There are 5 ways to avoid tax according to experts and smugglers. 1. Cross-border smuggling. 2. Round-tripping. You export the cigarettes and immediately smuggle them back in. 3. Ghost exports. The documents say the cigarettes are exported, but they never are. 4. Removal from warehouses or during transit. 5. Off-radar manufacturing. Factories secretly make so-called number 2 stock, often at night. If you can avoid paying the 17 Rand per pack, imagine how your profits will soar. That's a massive incentive and is borne out in numbers from 2018, which show that 185 million packs were unaccounted for. Various sources gave us a variety of brands sold during lockdown, which we then showed Van Locherenberg. He explains that legal brands bear a SARS stamp.
It's a die in the shape of a diamond with the letters SA in the middle, which is then uniquely numbered and provided to a registered manufacturer or importer for local consumption. Taxes were paid on them. Now, of course, the big question is when this was manufactured. Yeah. Was this manufactured during the lockdown period or before?
As SARS hasn't implemented new legislation that would allow illicit packs to be traced, the diamond stamp during lockdown becomes meaningless.
I cannot imagine what went through their minds when they banned the trade in cigarettes and not put into place additional measures to deal with the very predictable consequences.
Then, a month into the ban, the government allowed local cigarette manufacturers to export cigarettes.
And so, in effect, it created a loophole, which meant that the local companies could continue producing ostensibly for the export market, and then, probably export some of those volumes but divert some of those volumes and sell them on the local market.
A former SARS lawyer, 𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁, has investigated international cigarette smuggling and discovered that both large and small brands are available for sale under lockdown. This does not mean the manufacturers were breaking the rules. The illicit trade in these brands could be the result of criminal activity in the supply chain. We were given these locally manufactured brands like Dunhill from BAT, the British American Tobacco Group, which has operations across 6 continents and a factory in South Africa. And also smaller manufacturers that sell cheaper brands. These include Amalgamated Tobacco Manufacturers, or ATM, which operates from Pietermaritzburg and sells brands like Malimbo, and Johannesburg-based Carnilinks, which sells, among other brands, JFK. A research unit that studies cigarette tax at the University of Cape Town surveyed 12,000 smokers and found the market share had shifted during lockdown. 60% of cigarettes sold before lockdown were BAT brands. In May, of the illicit cigarettes sold, 24% are BAT brands, 10% are Carnilinks brands, which is up from 2%, and ATM's brands are up from 0.4% to 2%. Then this week, the UCT research unit updated the numbers from June, surveying 23,000 smokers. It found that of the illicit cigarettes sold now, BAT's brands decreased to 9%, while Carnilinks brands increased to 14% and ATM's brands rose to 10%. Also in June, the tobacco industry took the government to court demanding the rationale for the ban. The court found that for health reasons, the ban was rational and necessary during the pandemic and that cigarettes were not essential. ATM, Carnilinks and BAT are challenging the ban.
The fact that we are told that if we want to know the reasons, we need to go to court is also problematic because, when government defends itself, we fund them through taxpayers' money.
But Mr. X, for one, finds the continuation of the ban suspicious, saying behind closed doors, tobacco players have always had close ties with government officials and politicians.
There's too many loopholes and lots of corruption within the industry, and everybody is politically connected.
This is why some suggest Minister Dlamini Zuma is benefiting from an alleged close relationship with Carnilinks director Adriano Mazzotti, who is alleged to have paid money towards her presidential campaign, an allegation both have denied. But now Mazzotti's past is again being dug up, as he had admitted to smuggling in 2014 in order to cut a deal with SARS when the agency went after him for tax evasion.
It described how he met an official who gave him documents and he paid for that, which is a bribe. That SARS official is still within SARS to this day. He describes how 40 tons per week smuggled into the country.
The plea deal fell through and Mazzotti was never convicted. He declined an interview now, saying he's not benefiting in any way from the illicit trade and he can't be held responsible for illegal traders. He questioned the credibility of both UCT reports that show a rise in Carnilinks brands sold. He says Carnilinks wasn't consulted, the numbers are unreliable and not based on a nationwide market, and the ban has severely impacted Carnilinks. He questioned the relevance of having his private tax affairs aired. Mr. X insists that Minister Dlamini Zuma's former husband's family deserves scrutiny. A tobacco insider shared information with SARS in 2013 that funds from tobacco smuggling were being channeled to fund upgrades to the Nkandla household and former President Jacob Zuma's family. Some of those documents have now been entrusted to us by Mr. X. One of the alleged smugglers is the director of ATM, 𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗁𝗃.
𝗃𝗁𝗃𝗃𝗃, to use his terminology, he says he was half pregnant, meaning that he ran a legitimate factory, but he also ran something else.
That something else is said to be a smuggling operation that brought in tobacco from Zimbabwe. Over several years, the company's paperwork was adjusted and it became known as Delta Tobacco, run by 𝗀𝗁𝗃𝗃 and his business partner Azim Karim. Delta Tobacco's accounts ran through another company called Royal Sonic. These accounts came directly from their account managers and were sent to 𝗀𝗁𝗃𝗃 and Karim every day.
That company was making payments to the Zumas, including payments made in cash to Nkandla, and these payments were made for political protection.
How much are we talking here?
150,000 rand a month.
The documents reveal monthly payments of 30,000 rand to Jacob Zuma's son, Edward, plus flights and BMW X5 car installments. The accounts show bribes. Here we have 380,000 rand for transporters and clearing agents, 150,000 rand for a customs official, 50,000 rand for a SARS official, 120,000 rand, and here's another 5,000 rand for cops. In early 2011, SARS swooped in, arresting Karim for customs fraud. SARS then refused to give Karim and 𝗀𝗁𝗏 a manufacturing license for their new factory in 𝗶𝗏𝗴𝗏. While Karim was trying to clear his name with SARS, 𝗀𝗁𝗏 changed the company documents, ejecting Karim as a director from the factory and changing its name to ATM. Edward Zuma became its sole director.
Then, when Edward Zuma becomes the director, the factory gets granted a manufacturing license from SARS.
With license in hand, Zuma resigned, handing the company back to 𝗀𝗁𝗏.
We know that Edward Zuma has since left, although there are indications that he's potentially still a silent partner in the business.
Edward Zuma said we should send our questions to his partner, 𝗀𝗁𝗏.
I think it's going to be appropriate for my other colleagues.
Which colleagues? Which parties?
Yes.
He laughed when we asked him about the payments.
No, I have no idea about what you're talking about.
Later alleging that we've been paid by BAT to make these ridiculous claims. 𝗀𝗁𝗏's former business partner Karim said,
"Unfortunately, I'm unable to comment as the investigation is ongoing with no conclusion as yet. I can confirm that my companies were hijacked by Mr. Yusuf Kaji."
But 𝗀𝗁𝗏 denies hijacking ATM.
This state prosecutor threw this whole case out of court saying that this was a vendetta. I ended up paying SARS, right? I had to sign an indemnity with them that I would not make the case public.
Have you ever smuggled, yes or no?
Me? Smuggled? Smuggled what?
Cigarettes, obviously.
Yes, I've smuggled a white girl or two into my bedroom, yes, many times.
I think you should answer the question about cigarettes instead of trying to
I've never smuggled
be funny.
cigarettes, darling. Who the is Carte Blanche in my life?
He warned our producer that the industry wouldn't be happy with the story.
They'll eat you up for breakfast, you won't have a job.
𝗀𝗁𝗏 later blamed players along the distribution chain, saying they are illegally selling cigarettes from their storage facilities. But it's not just the smaller manufacturers who have questions to answer. With 30 billion rands of South African government pension funds invested in BAT, the tobacco industry wields enormous power.
British American Tobacco in particular, they have a very long history internationally of their packs ending up on the black market.
BAT has 2 outstanding tax bills to the tune of 2.2 billion rand, unrelated to smuggling, that they are disputing with SARS. Van Locherenberg says in 2014, SARS was about to audit all the cigarette manufacturers when the tobacco industry hit back. A false narrative was created with the sole purpose of discrediting Van Locherenberg and his SARS unit by calling them rogue agents. This was fed to the media, including Carte Blanche. It resulted in Van Locherenberg leaving SARS, undermining its investigative capabilities, as well as halting investigations into the tobacco manufacturers.
So there was never a rogue unit?
There was never a rogue unit.
Van Locherenberg and his unit members were only just vindicated this June when the report by the Inspector General of Intelligence, one of those that had been used to discredit them in 2014, was finally reviewed and set aside.
The Inspector General of Intelligence has given me their assurance that they will be investigating.
Van Locherenberg has published the court documents which had formed part of his investigations at SARS before he left. These BAT internal emails show that BAT had paid a lawyer £3,000 a month for privileged information on its competitors. That cash was withdrawn locally via these Travelex cards. BAT has never responded to these allegations and declined an interview now, saying it would only promote books written by Van Locherenberg and Snickers. Their latest media statement denies involvement in any smuggling, saying BAT South Africa exports to 12 other countries and the volumes we are producing are consistent with export volumes before the lockdown. BAT South Africa is working closely with SARS and have implemented new processes and protocols for production and export. They say we have SARS officials at our factory who are controlling production volumes, auditing the export declarations, verifying the container loading and sealing the containers. If the country is to capture any of the taxes it so desperately needs, then SARS needs to be allocated the required resources to establish a nationwide task force. SARS declined to comment, saying it could not make private tax matters public. The government has said the sale of cigarettes will only be allowed under level 2 of lockdown. This has inflamed many smokers who protested the ban. Van Locherenberg believes the only way forward is for the government and SARS to continue with the investigations he had begun into the tobacco industry.
Thank you for watching our stories here online, and please subscribe below to become part of our YouTube community and be notified when we upload our latest content.